Hi, Maggie. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Can we start with, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and who you serve?
Sure. I'm a business and marketing strategist with ADHD, and I help coaches, consultants, and business owners make a lot more income and impact with a lot less time, effort, and energy. And I do that through automations, AI, and moving them into a one-to-many program themselves.
Great. So we are here today to talk about your program and learn a few things about like how you create this incredible experience for your clients that you do. Can you tell us a little bit about what the program is about, who it serves, and how you structured it kind of just like high level?
Sure. So I have sort of two programs, or they're like two tiers of one core program. So in the main one, which is Evergreen Empire, it's really about how do you move from one-to-one services, like trading time for money? How do you package your knowledge into a leveraged offer so that you can help a lot more people get better results? At the same time, your income goes up and your client delivery time goes down. So that's the goal in a nutshell. We do a lot more than that, as you know. So it's pricing and sales with empathy and automations and systems. And then once we kind of help people have that up and running and they're about at 10K, 15K a month or so, we move into the accelerator mastermind, which is then a lot more around scaling with ads, low ticket offers and self-liquidating funnels, teams, and some very cool, fancy, advanced marketing business tips, which I love.
Yeah, absolutely. How involved are you in running your programs?
Very involved.
Do you have support? Who is your support? Let's talk about your team
Yes.
for a sec.
So I have a team of two people, three people maybe. So there's me, obviously. I do the bulk of the client delivery because when clients join a program, they join me for the strategy. So I do that side of things. My husband, Michael, quit his full-time sales job to come close sales for me. So he does a lot on the sales, the closing sales in the business. But he also is doing more and more with our clients to help them get more clients through analyzing their sales calls or helping them with AI stuff. And then my sister does operations for us. So she's the one, she's CFO, operations, automations, and all the techie stuff.
Great, very tight team and like very really key roles. Terrific.
Yeah.
How did the programs evolve like since the first time you ran them? Like tell us a little bit about the evolution process.
Yeah. I think that's like, this is such a good question. So there's like two stages of the evolution, I think. There's like the previous iteration of this program, and then there's all this experimental stuff I did before I did my first like long-term program.
Yeah.
Because, I ran different variations of courses, masterminds, launches from a 4-week program to like 5 months, I think was the longest. And I kept feeling like there was something missing. Because I would run like longer term masterminds that were very just pure hot seat coaching once in 2 weeks. And we just did hot seats.
Yeah.
And I would also sell courses where it was just information, no coaching.
Mm-hmm.
I realized at one point I needed to put them together because the people in the masterminds were losing structure. They didn't really have structure and they didn't have the information that they needed. And the people in the courses were implementing information in the wrong way. I'm like, no, don't do it that way. I was like, oh, they need coaching. So that's where I put together the first version of my program, which is called Momentum. Hold everything together. Let's take the coaching. Let's take what I'm doing with my one-on-one clients and with the course students into one thing and have the best of all three worlds. And I ran that program for about a year and a half when I started seeing that there were some gaps in the curriculum. There were some things that people were asking me for that I wasn't teaching in a way that was as organized as I would like it to be. And that's where I redid the program. I decided to move it away from Momentum because at the time it felt like it was getting a bit like generic get more clients program, which isn't really what I do. And I moved into Evergreen Empire because I was like, no, it's about moving away from one-to-one clients, moving into one-to-many, and having something that really feels like it's an autopilot ecosystem that you build once and grow from there. And that's my goal for every client. So But to be honest, even like I'm constantly looking at like, how can we improve? How can we give better resources, give better support, help clients take more action without throwing too much and making the program bloated and then having clients feel overwhelmed. So it's always like a bit of a fine line, I feel, to follow.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we'll come back to this topic because like I would really love to ask some questions about that. But before that, I'm very curious. Like as the program grew, like, what were some kind of like growing pains that you've experienced, or like, some kind of like challenges like as the program scaled?
I think sometimes taking on the wrong clients, just because someone's willing to pay you doesn't mean you have to take their money. And I think sometimes I love seeing the best in people, and I love seeing the benefit of that. Like, but I could help that person if only they, turned up and did what I told them to do. I can help them.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's actually come with a lot more work than it should have. I think like the biggest growing pain for me, honestly, was insecurity about my program curriculum at one point of like, oh my gosh, is it actually good enough? And then I was speaking to friends who like have been running like big programs, and they're like, well, is it good enough? I was like, I'm not sure. And they're like, okay, well, make it better. I'm like, okay. And I went to do that. So it's kind of realizing that once you have a program that it's okay to be in a state of evolution.
Yeah.
Like the moment you finish filming a curriculum, you basically already know like what the next version is. That's okay.
Yeah. Just like with any system in business, it's kind of you are always kind of you put the first version in place, and then you look at the result. Is that like loop, the same one that you have on your mug?
Test it, tweak it, try again.
Exactly. So let's talk about different tactics that you use in your programs to ensure engagement and these great results. Like what works for you, and like what in your program, like, what are those things that when you started implementing, you saw that, oh my goodness, like this made such a huge difference for my clients?
That's such a hard question to answer because I don't, off the top of my head, I can't think of like what's one thing that we did that made a huge impact. It's more like we do lots of small things and all of them have a small impact, and then together that as a big one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's talk about small things.
Oh, you know what? The biggest one I think is the battle plan session. So I start off every client with a one-to-one session. That's something I've actually made some improvements on fairly recently because I used to have like, let's have a general conversation and we kind of brainstorm. And then which I love doing. And now I literally give them a Google document, 30, 60, 90-day goals. They have their bullet points. They have like links to resources. Because I know when you join a program, you work with someone, you're like, but how does it work? What can I ask? Where to find stuff? And starting with like, we've sat down together, we create a Google document from like I have a template for it. And they can have a visual of here's what I have to focus on in the first 30, next 30, and last 30 days. So first 90 days. That I think made a huge difference. But people also kind of coming in feeling like there is a plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I find, yeah, like I'll give it the mic back to you, but I just wanted to comment on this because this is such an important and invaluable piece, especially when you bring clients who are at slightly different levels of where they are. So the curriculum that you have is massive, and it's helpful on this like overall journey. But depending on what this particular client already implemented in, like what they have in place, what works for them, it's always so helpful to have that a bit more focused vision on, okay, like these are the things that I want to be paying attention in this order. Yeah, really, really amazing. Yeah,
I found
okay.
that also gives me a good feeling as well. Because when someone comes in, I'm always like, oh, are they okay? How are they finding things?
Right.
And I'm like, I love having that one-on-one call. I love having them plan. I'm always like, what else can I help you with? And just gives us like a nice starting point, I think, for that relationship.
Absolutely. And now going back to those little things, like those little improvements that you've played with that actually like made a difference.
You know, one of my favorite things that we've done most recently, and I'm excited for this to just how this goes on further. Michael built out a sales bot, an AI bot, based on our sales scripts to help clients analyze sales calls.
Yeah.
So one, people can send in sales calls to him and he'll give them feedback, which like one of my clients, Kim, she had a couple of calls. She didn't close them. I was like, please just submit it to Michael. He'll have a look. He gave her some feedback. She closed her next 2 clients the next day, like, or within 12 hours. It was like wild.
Wow.
He was just like, here's where you're going wrong. Here's where you're going wrong. Ask this question. Implemented, like I have goosebumps, like 2 clients closed like the next day. And that's obviously if you get better at the sales skill.
Mm-hmm.
We call it empathy-based sales. So it's not sales being sleazy, it's just getting better at sales. That's going to pay dividends for that client, long after they stop working with us. And that I think is really exciting.
Yeah.
And now we've
Absolutely.
got a sales bot. So they can submit to Michael and he'll give them that feedback. But you can now do it yourself with this thing that we built that spits out, you were a 4 out of 10 on empathy and you should have asked this question, or you missed out this one thing from Maggie's script to help you improve as well.
That's incredible. And that's such a great example of like where automation or using technology so it helps to actually improve the experience versus make it less personable and less enjoyable for the participant. Yeah, absolutely. That's amazing. Tell us a little bit more about kind of the strategies that helped you to manage the group like as it grew, because what I see, one of the concerns for people who begin growing their programs is that one that's like they will not be like there'll be like just a lot on their plate because the group will be bigger, there'll be bigger demand on their time, so like they want to be able to manage it, but for them it's kind of like how will I have time for everybody? How do you look at that?
I think there's a balance, right? Like, and I also feel that all time isn't created equal. Like, if you're going from one-to-one into one-to-many, or you've always had like super small groups and now you're scaling, like, yes, people will have less time with you now if there's 40 people in your program than when you had 3 one-to-one clients, obviously.
Yeah.
And that can feel like really intimidating. I definitely went through that as well. Like, because my goal is to help people and help them get results. But I also have the evidence. Like, I spoke to one of my clients, Martin. We had like a 6-7 minute long conversation about not over delivering in webinars. He took that concept, he ran with it, he implemented it into his other business. That made him $90,000 in about 3 weeks. And that's turned into a $300,000 annual stream of revenue. He's literally retiring to Norway with his partner because he's hired a full-time head of operations for his company. 6-minute long conversation. So I feel sometimes like people feel like, oh, I need more time. Like, it's not about the time, it's about how effective we can be.
Yeah.
And there's definitely like an art and a science to holding space and control when you start having bigger group calls. So there's I've definitely had to be strict with boundaries or best way to ask me questions, because when you're doing a group call when there's like 20-30 people live with questions, if you get a 5-minute story from every person, it's very tiring. And I start zoning out. Like, no, tell me your question first. Like, tell me your problem. And then I can direct, and you've heard me say this like 4 times per call, basically, like, tell me your problem first, then I will know what to look out for and what questions to ask. So sometimes I feel a bit weird about that because I feel like I'm just being a bit strict, which I don't like doing. On the other hand, do you want me to be effective? Do you want to get help? Great. This is the best way to do it.
Absolutely. Which really like such a great segue into this next question is that, especially, I mean, building a business is a like personal growth journey, like anyway, whichever like way you look at it. In terms of growing a program, like making it and like applying all the changes that you've applied, what changes in you in the way that like you thought about things change the like, mindsets things, or something that's you noticed that like you were thinking about this thing like one way before and now you look at it differently?
Okay, great question. One thing that comes right off the bat is I used to think that the more I would put into a program, the more value I would give to my clients. I found out quite quickly, actually, that gets them overwhelmed. So it's actually, we want to give less, but like the most effective things, because you can always add more in. You can't take things out. So like in a previous, this is a little bit embarrassing to share, but in a previous version of like a mastermind I ran, we did like a monthly CEO date where it was like, I think, oh, I'll be on Zoom for like 2 hours or 3 hours and then 3 hours, like in one day, and we'll go there and talk. I don't know. Yeah, they liked it, but like it wasn't really useful. So I think kind of growing lean is better. We're also testing things out. Like we did like a monthly sales clinic. We're like, oh, actually, we're not getting that many people submitting questions for that call. Great. What other ways can we basically give them the support instead of this thing that we thought was going to work, but it's not really working the way we wanted to right now? So we did it more in an ad hoc way. And guess what? People are submitting, they're getting help, and they're moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is something that I so admire about you, is that like you move fast, but you always move with intention, and you always look at, okay, like this is where we are starting, and like this is kind of like our benchmarks right now. Like I want to test this, and like here is like what I like roughly expect. So if it's like below that, like we'll retire this idea. If it's working out, like we'll like, so like you are so strategic in like everything that you do, at least that's visible to me. That is really, really impressive, because like sometimes I go into the over analyzing mode, but I really admire people who can like move so quickly, take decisions quickly, and if necessary fail quickly, but then like they know the result.
It's really practice. And it's the reason I am now someone who generally makes quicker decisions and takes quick action, not for everything, but for whenever possible, is because I spent so long being stuck in this analysis paralysis mode, years of being so deeply frustrated with myself, of overanalyzing, of writing all these ideas that never really move forward. I was going through my old notebooks like a few days ago, and just pages and pages, like pages of ideas and thoughts and dreams. It like generally breaks my heart, because I know I got myself out of it, but how many people are still in that ideation phase? I'm like, no, take quick action. Oh, look at what I have on my desk. Literally, if you can read that, allow yourself to fail.
Oh, that's great. That's a great motto to have in front of you.
Yeah, I wrote that years ago. I think that's like at least 8 years old. I wrote that like in one of my worst like perfectionism phases. But I think it's just test it out with intention, as you said. With a sales clinic, like we have a vision for it. I would love to have that monthly sales clinic. We also thought, oh, at one point, do we want to take out one of my weekly calls a month and put the sales clinic instead? We did that once or twice, and I was like, you know what? I don't feel good about it. I don't feel good about doing that. So we put it back in, and the sales clinic is not going to be an extra when we choose to do it versus exchanging it. Yeah. So it's like we tried it. I was like, it doesn't feel good for me to do that.
Yeah.
So it's not.
Yeah. Really, really, really good. So before I let you go, two last questions. One is for somebody who is in this process of like working like, on scaling their program, like maybe they are making like the first steps towards, okay, like I have this small-ish program, and like now I want to make this leap and have a larger group. What would your advice to them be?
So I think there's two things. One is focus on the audience growth, nurture, and sales. When you start growing your group and you have capacity for it, you need traffic to come in regularly. So you need a traffic source, ads, organic, referrals, collaborations, whatever. You need something to nurture them. So I'm a big fan of building out evergreen marketing assets. So it's like something you build out once and it just works in the background as part of your ecosystem, and improving on your sales mechanism. So how do you convert people into paying clients who you can now help faster? So that's on building that flow of people. the biggest mistake I made in that process is I didn't realize I was selling people into my program faster than how I was building up the audience. So what happened to me at one point is that I tapped out of my warm audience.
Mhm.
So you start with an audience, 1,000 people, 2,000 people. You sell to them, you sell to them, you sell to them. You nurture them, you're emailing them. Great, making sales. But you're like, oh, at one point the sales start declining because you're not adding new people into your audience quickly enough, and you're not nurturing them quickly enough because those people in your warm audience have been there for like maybe years.
Yeah.
And that's something where you're scaling. Like that's where a combination between paid ads, doesn't have to be high budget, paid ads and organic will help you do that. But just be aware of that shift. And the other thing, obviously, would be talk to Natasha, pay her money, hire her for services, and she will help you with your program, because at the end of the day, you don't just want to like sell people into it. You want them to have an amazing experience, get amazing results, give you amazing testimonials, and tell all their friends about you. So you have more people coming in there naturally, and that's I think where you would come in.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the goal. Thank you so much, Maggie. Where can we learn more about you and then your programs?
You can go to maggiegiele.com or find me on Instagram, send me a DM, and I'm happy to, if you tell me a question you have about what you're doing, I'll look if I have a resource I can send to you for free and hopefully help you out with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And your resources are absolutely incredible. Like anything related to ChatGPT or automations, like that's where I got hooked, and now I'm so happy that I did. Well, thank you so very much, Maggie. Thank you for your time, and yeah, like I'm so looking forward to just working with you, because it has been an incredible experience, and yeah, it's been so amazing learning from you. Thank you so much.
Amazing. I'll see you next time.
Bye.